Hi, bitch besties. It's your main bitch, Melly. Thank you so much for tuning in, and welcome to another episode of the Judgy Bitch Pod. Hi, Holly. Welcome back to the Judgy Bitch Pod.
Thank you for having me back on.
I'm so excited for this episode. It's about time that we catch up on all things Vanderpump Rules.
Yes.
It's about time. There's so much that happened since we last spoke, and the new reboot started, and Scheana and Lala and Stassi is being a blueprint. And I learned that two things can be true at the same time. You can be a big Bravo fan and just not like it, or you do like it and you have other opinions about it. I'm just so excited to catch up with you and talk all things Vanderpump Rules today. Welcome back.
Thank you. Yeah, me too.
And I'm also so glad that you took my advice and listened to the audiobook of Sheena's book called Her Good Side, I think. How did you like it overall?
It was actually really easy listening on the audiobook. I thought she did a really good job reading too. That's not easy. And do you want my impressions of the book overall or just that?
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I thought it was really interesting because I've read a lot of housewives autobiographies, memoirs, and they tend to cover a lot of their lives before they came on the show because with the housewives often they're in their 40s by that point. With this book, obviously Scheana for most of her adult life has been on reality television, so there isn't a ton of stuff prior to us actually knowing and following her for her to talk about. And at one moment she did mention something like in her teenage years and having an eating disorder, and I was like, oh, like you could have totally talked more about that. That would have been interesting. But she seemed to really rattle through those early years. And then all of a sudden we were very quickly in the time of her life that we're all pretty familiar with, to be honest. And
Yeah.
so I didn't feel there was a ton that I felt was new or anything I didn't know. It kind
Yeah.
of felt like somebody relating a story that I was already really, really aware of. And aside from the big drop, which was the Brock affair, and I
Yeah.
think the big drop, because that was eked out early on in order to increase the sales of the book, right? And the
Mm.
problem when they do that, and I have a friend who said this once about Demi Moore's biography, and I agree, is that usually that's the most interesting part of the book. So then you know if you want to read it or not, right? Because you're like, oh, well, they're going to put out the most interesting part of the book to
Mm-hmm.
sell the book. And then that's the top topic that you want to hear about. And I got a little bit more detail, but not a ton from the book.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like, it was kind of comforting and nice and like enjoyable, like returning to this character that I know so well, but I didn't feel it gave me much new to think about.
Yeah. And obviously, I want to talk to you about the affair part. We're going to get to that.
Yeah.
But for the overall impression, and tell me if you felt the same way, for me, it was almost like reading like a high schooler's book who is just trying to justify their actions, which part of me can understand because if she feels that she has been misportrayed and always been like, the black sheep of the cast. So now she wanted to take the opportunity and set the record straight, how, from her perspective, things went down, which I understand. But overall, the way I perceived the book was almost like, well, now I tell you my side. And even the book is called My Good Side. Like the overall voice or tone of the book was almost like, going to mom and telling her, but I didn't start it. It was so and so. Do you agree with that?
It was very defensive. Like she
Mhm.
assumed that you were reading it not necessarily having like goodwill towards her, maybe, which was
Yeah.
strange. But I think the other thing that would chime in with what you're saying about like the maturity level and the perspective is that did you notice that it goes from one relationship to another, and she
Mhm.
basically has the eras of her life are very much defined by the men she is with at the time. So
Yeah.
I obviously didn't have the physical book in front of me, but it felt like it was like the John Mayer era, the Shay era, the Rob era, the Brock era, and it was very much like her life through. And you think for somebody who, for most people's standards, has accomplished lots of things, right?
Yeah.
Most of it sorted through those relationships that she had. So that was interesting to me, and it it didn't feel necessarily like you're saying, like a holistic view of somebody's life. It was angled in a certain way.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
Would you say that you got the impression it was angled in that certain way just to have a moneymaker rather than have an actual memoir about her life?
Yeah, I mean, I've read, like I say, I've read a lot of the reality TV stars' books, and they're usually quick reads, and they're often very short. Like you think of like a memoir of somebody who's, done as much as they've done, and you expect like a big tome, but they're usually pretty short and quick, and they're
Yeah.
obviously they know they're going to sell based purely on the author and the person whose photograph was on the front of the cover, right? So I imagine they get written very quickly, and often you have to think as well, like they probably are like a time in their lives. So it's a reflection of their own mental state at that time. And I
Mhm.
quite figure out like when she would have been doing the ghost writer interviews for them to write this book, like just normal, right? They all have a ghost writer. And where she was in her life, because there was another big glaring thing to me, which was that she kind of was addressing a lot of like what she saw as like bullying and mean girl behavior and people she didn't like and things that happened with other women that she wanted to put straight, like put the record straight. But her friendships are a huge part of her life. And I didn't feel, maybe I'm forgetting, that we got much on the friendships, especially if you think like the hugeness of the Lala friendship. And did she write it after they'd fallen out? Did she go back and edit her out of that book? Because she gets barely any attention in that book. It's really
Mhm.
glossed over, and what she has to say is either negative or neutral, which I found really interesting as well, because she sort of places herself so much as like, "Oh, my friendships, my friendships." I think the most she has to say about friendship is really Tom Sandoval. Like, she
Mhm.
doesn't even talk that much about Ariana, and you thought
Yeah.
she and Ariana were best friends. I think Ariana maybe gets, like, 4 paragraphs across the whole book. Do you know what
Yeah.
I mean? A lot of those women who you think are, like, a huge part of her life are really sidelined just to talk about the men who were in her life at the time.
Yeah. And that's probably why it contributes to my feeling of this is not so much a memoir talking about her actual life. It's more so like, telling her side of the story, almost like, you would go to, you get in trouble with mom because another kid did something to you. So now you go to mom and tell her, no, but they started this and they said that rather than talking about your day in school. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I think
It's just
she's
a fraction.
yes, I think she's very invested in her image and her and feeling like people are getting the impression of her that she wants and controlling that. And I think a lot
Yeah.
of she does, where she doesn't like to fall out with people, or she backs the wrong people up at the wrong time, or she tries to stay friends with everybody even though that's not the right thing to do, or she lets certain friends down because she's trying to like be perceived in a certain way. That's
Yeah.
obviously part of her psychology. And I can't, she talks a little bit about her diagnoses and things she's been through, right? But she definitely always seems to make the decision that ensures to her mind that she is being perceived in the right way. So
Yeah.
yeah, it doesn't surprise me considering what we know of her on the show that she would go and write a book that does the exact same thing, right? That positions
Exactly.
her in a way that she feels is like a place where she can't be criticized, where she would be considered the taking the higher ground and, being the right person.
Yeah. And also all the name dropping that she does in the book. It's almost gives like it gives a little bit of a social climber, right? Like she's collecting all those friendships and it feels like she's leveling them up and, dropping all those names. And can you actually be friends with 200 people? I don't know. But, she keeps collecting them just as she's collecting their locations in her phone.
I think she has a very loose interpretation of the word friend, right? She must mean just people that she sends the occasional Instagram DM to, she would count in that category. I thought one thing I found interesting, obviously, in the beginning of the book, which is kind of the stuff that I didn't know, is the very early part of the book, obviously, how she came to fame almost through the lawsuit around Hooters.
Hmm.
Well, for one thing, Gloria Allred, the lawyer that basically positioned her as like the spokesperson for these women who'd been harassed and stalked
Hmm.
and videotaken by that man. I used to work for a lawyer in Beverly Hills, and she would call a lot of the time to set up appointments and meetings with this person I worked for. She was always absolutely lovely on the phone, where it all read. So I always
Mhm.
have a lot of goodwill towards her. She's got this very like powerful, scary public persona, but I always think when I read about her that I always remember how nice she was on the phone. But it's funny to me because I don't remember, despite the Britney Hooters connection, that ever coming up again at any point. That's what happened before the affair with Brandy's husband, Eddie, that was kind of her first step into the public sphere. It's funny
Yeah,
that it never was made a thing of, but that she had
it
that negative
wasn't.
association with
It
Hooters,
wasn't, and I
whereas
never
Britney
heard
had
that
this very
story with
positive association with Hooters, right? She was like, "Oh, I want to buy a Hooters," the last time we saw her. So,
yeah.
funny.
Yeah, that was a little odd. I never heard that Hooters relationship with her either. It was always Britney,
Yeah.
Hooters. And I don't remember them ever mentioning, but maybe I'm just not remembering that, forgetting that, ever mentioning even Britney could have said, Scheana May, Hooters sisters. They could have made any remarks. And I don't remember that ever happened. And then I want to talk a little bit about Lisa Vanderpump and Bravo, because Sheena really shits on them. I'm sorry, I'm very being judgy bitchy right now talking about Sheena. I actually like her, but she gave us this great book to shit on, so to speak. What was your take on what she said about Lisa and Bravo, and how she kind of like blamed Lisa of making, a story out of it and creating Vanderpump Rules, and she's almost trying to take credit for all of this. What was your take?
Yeah, I found that very I was again, my issue there was with like the timeline of when this book was created and edited, because same with the Lala situation, like she isn't positive about Lisa Vanderpump at all, which if you read it and then you as Lisa Vanderpump read that book, or your friends or somebody mentioned it to you, I can see now why she's not in the valley, right? And why she's no longer in that group of like people. There's very few that are like Schwartz, basically, that are still in with Lisa Vanderpump. And I find that I wonder, like, did that happen after things went sour there, or or did she instigate that, right? To tell her truth and then put herself in the position where she's no longer, able to be a part of that world, because she's Lisa Vanderpump is still executive producer to some extent. She still has some level of control over who's involved in things, right? Yeah. So the timeline was really strange to me. It's not very Sheena, is it, to go after somebody who still has so much power, you would think. At
Yes.
the same time, maybe that indicates that she doesn't anymore so much.
Yeah. And then I'm not sure if you listen to her podcast regularly, but then she had someone from the Bravo world on her podcast, and I forgot what his title was. He may have been a producer or somebody from Bravo. I don't know. And
Yeah.
she had him on her podcast so that he can confirm that she didn't fall out with Bravo over the book, and that it's not the reason why she's not on the Valley, is how she criticized Bravo in the book. And it was her choice and her doing and blah, blah, blah. And it just sounds all so odd that I almost was thinking, and this is just my theory, my conspiracy theory, that maybe they had a fallout and they somehow created like a let go contract almost, where they agreed on in the contract that Bravo will say those things to not make her look bad, but they're, going their separate ways, kind of. I don't know, just, my theory. But yeah, that also happened, that she had that person on the podcast, which was so weird after she really talked so badly. Or did she talk badly, or did she reveal the Bravo machine? You're wondering.
Well, I think a lot of people are doing that, right? And a lot of people in the show talked about, especially the final season, the things that they felt the producers did wrong and the way they handled the situation and when they felt pressured. And, I think she wasn't the first person to be negative about the show, but I didn't feel so much she was negative about the show as she was negative about Lisa
Mhm.
specifically. She didn't seem to have any particular issues with like the reality TV industry so much as she seemed to have issue with her.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, that to me, that kind of suggests like that there is a reason for her to think that she no longer needs her, basically.
Yeah.
She can move on. And, maybe she's invested wisely and she can. We
Yeah.
don't a lot of these people, they don't, that money doesn't last long. And then they're back to the beginning again. But maybe
Yeah.
she feels that she has enough security that she can say what she
Yeah.
wants to It's kind of with the Lala stuff, isn't it? It's like she seems to be very into burning bridges right now, but it feels like it doesn't feel necessarily like it seems like it's coming out of something like therapy or something that she's been given, and she's being told to address things in a certain way,
Mm.
and act in a certain way and make certain decisions.
Which is good for her, more power to her to go through therapy and learning to set boundaries, you know. But it also seems that she's schmoozing up a little bit to the OC ladies, specifically Shannon Bador. So maybe she's hoping to get on the Housewives and is done with Vanderpump and the Valley. And in her mind, maybe it feels like a level up once you become a housewife. And maybe
Oh,
that's why she doesn't need Lisa anymore. I don't know. I'm just
oh, I'm
questioning.
sure she'd feel like it was a level up to become a housewife, and yeah, I mean, if anything, she's savvy, and she's obviously strategic, right,
Yeah.
to an extent.
Yeah, I want to talk about the Lala feud a little later, but
Mhm,
let's get to the bombshell of the book, the affair with Brooks.
mhm,
So
mhm.
she claims in her book that he had the sexual affair in 2020 while she was pregnant with Summer Moon, but he didn't confess it to her until 2023 during the whole scandal chaos. And she says she describes how Scandal and Raquel, restraining order aftermath, and all this had her nervous system shot, and then blind items and rumors about Brooke pushed her into hypervigilance. What was your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. I mean, obviously, that's if being lied to essentially for that long
Let me
would.
ask you first, do you believe the affair actually happened, or do you think it's a PR stunt for the book?
I find it, well, it's difficult for me to say because I feel like I don't quite understand when you're still with somebody and you have a small child with them making something like that public. Even if it's not true, it doesn't really matter if it's not true once it's made public
Right.
because, you know, that it does, even if she said, "Oh, I'm gonna tell my daughter when she's older that it was a lie to sell books," like, that's what does that say about her? That's a big risk in itself. Also, like, he has so much marked up against him from his previous relationship and his family that he has in Australia. I cannot imagine agreeing to somebody doing that
Right.
to your reputation
Mhm.
and your standing, especially if you're going through like legal stuff or you're trying to see your kids or you're trying to get more access to your kids or you're trying to earn their trust or whatever. Like it
Yeah.
would be a very strange thing to agree to.
Yeah. But
And
as
I
you
feel
said
like
earlier, she doesn't really reveal much of her earlier life. Like she doesn't give us much of her personal life in the
no.
book outside Vanderpump. But then all of a sudden, the most personal thing for such a young family is an affair for the daughter later to read that she shares. It seems odd to me.
Yeah, and also I don't think it's I think it must have happened too, because if you watch the show, I remember there is a long period in the show where they were just fighting all the time and he was not very patient with her. He was really intolerant of her OCD, her not wanting to go out and not leaving the child and her mum, and like they were obviously arguing a lot, and like even though she's trying to be like, well, I had no idea that anything happened. People, after they do something like that, they're not the same because they feel guilty and they feel bad and they feel ashamed, and they're going to do what they can in order to avoid those feelings, and that will be start fights and make you the villain and make it seem like he had to do it, make himself feel better about the choices he made, right? And there's definitely a time in the show where you're like, what's his problem? Like, why
Mm,
is he angry all the time with her? Like, why is he so intolerant? Why does he seem to have lost all patience? And it probably was after that happened. So
mm,
I don't. I think it happened. I think it definitely was the reason that she definitely put it in to sell books because there's nothing else in there really, like that we don't know. There's nothing new. So yeah, I mean, I think it's both decisions really. But
interesting.
I mean, if she knew and she hid it from people in her life, including Lala, who was so close to him, I think that in itself is such a betrayal to me. I think if I
Mhm.
was so close to your husband and letting my kids spend time with your husband all that time and that was something that you kept from me, I wouldn't be happy with that.
Yeah. But also everything you just said about his behavior on the show, you could also flip side that and say, well, if he has fucked up this badly and it just told her in those moments when the show was, filmed, shouldn't he be like this little with his tail tucked under and be like super sweet and nice to her because he's trying to keep his family and not lose her and the child?
Oh,
But
I
the
mean, he hadn't
opposite.
told her. I mean the opposite. I mean, it happened, but he hadn't told her.
Oh, you think in that moment he hadn't told her?
No.
But he was trying to make her the villain, knowing that, he cheated on her.
Yeah, and that's very common, right? You do that, people would do that to, like,
Of
avoid
course.
having to deal with those negative feelings about themselves, because if you can make someone else look bad and you're looking for ways to do that, then you can
Yeah.
blame them. Like, "Well, I had to because she won't go out, she won't leave our child, she won't leave the house, she's got this OCD, she won't only let her mother look after it. Like, no wonder I had to go off and be with somebody else because I'm so neglected." Like, it's a
Mm.
whole justification thing. Like, psychologically, it totally makes sense that he hadn't told her, and he was, probably unconsciously, because he's probably not the smartest tool in the box, trying to, like, start fights with things to make himself feel better.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I totally get it. But the affair supposedly happened while she was still pregnant, so
Mm,
before the OCD stuff really started.
I guess
Um,
so. Yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's just, to me, it's just interesting why to put it in the book, whether or not it's true. You have some explaining to do to your daughter. And I feel it almost worse if it is true, then, and you have a young daughter, why put it in the book? You know what I mean? Like, I almost wish it's not true because it's then you can tell her, no, it was just a lie because mommy and daddy needed to make money for you. But, like, I don't know. I'm
I
so
think that's
torn.
always gonna be the divide, and it's a conversation they have a lot on various housewives and things, don't they? Like, do you go onto TV and talk crap about your ex-husband or the person you're divorcing in front of everybody, knowing that, like, all the Kardashians, right? They talk about this all the time too. Like,
Yeah,
you do take that to the public, knowing that at some point your child will be on internet or YouTube or school and hear
yeah,
about it, right?
yeah,
Or do you not? And do you maintain the kind of at least publicly neutral, friendly relationship so as not to be trashing on somebody who's very important in your child's life? I mean, there was that conversation we had, like, with Brittany on the Valley, and then with, like, Kyle and Dorit and Real Housewives right now, and the different ways they tackle things.
hmm
Lots and lots. It always comes up when people go through relationship splits on reality TV. It's like, are they right to do that when they have young children, or should they keep
yeah,
quiet?
yeah. You're giving me the perfect sideline into the next topic. Let's talk about Lala for a second before we get into the feud between Lala and Sheena, because you just mentioned it. Lala has this new podcast. Well, first of all, she rebranded her podcast
Mhm,
to Untraditionally Lala, which is great because she's living untraditional life, having
mhm.
had her second child with a sperm donor and all this. But now she added to it the name escaped my brain for a second, but this new segment where she is talking together with
Was
her
it called The Other
exes.
Woman, or is that not true?
I'm sorry?
Was it called The Other Woman or something, or am I making that up? Is that
It
too obvious?
I think it's an
I've listened to it.
unlikely
Oh.
affair or something, untraditional affair or
Oh.
something along those lines, where she talks with her ex's ex-wife, where she was the mistress on.
Mhm.
They became friends. Good for them. More power to them. Good for their children. Also to have this relationship probably because they're half siblings, right? But at the beginning, and I'm hoping her podcast will change a little bit and grow a little bit. At the beginning, my first thought was, why do you make a podcast with your ex's other ex just to shit on him when you have children with that person? What is your take on that? Do you feel the
Is
same
that what
way?
she's doing? Because I didn't feel from the episodes I listened to that that was what she was doing, because
Some episodes they talk about their experiences with the ex and what they've been through emotionally, and I understand that relationship is probably good for them both. It's almost like, like a like a grief group, so to speak, right? Like we've been through the same trauma. Let's connect. Let's talk about it. It's probably very therapeutic for them and good for them. The question is just, does it have to be in a podcast for the world to hear and for their children to hear? Or shouldn't that be behind doors therapy sessions?
Yeah, I mean, if that is what they're doing, I didn't realize that. I just thought it was the concept rather than like the actual subject matter of the podcast ongoing. Then yeah, I mean, it does put a different light on things, because my assumption was always that like she was judging Scheana for bringing that pub out in public in the way that she did. Although again, going back to like, how I see her as a person, putting that in a book to make sure that she sins the better parent is kind of
Yeah.
ultimately her,
Yeah.
right? In the end, she wants her daughter to see her as the better parent. So yeah, I mean, I'm surprised at that, because I thought my understanding was with that situation is that he was very litigious and that he was often threatening to sue her and all
Yeah.
this. She couldn't do that. So it must be a timing issue. She must have got to some point with the legal part of it that she can now feel that she can do that. And obviously, it's a lot of pent up frustration and anger that she hasn't released previously for fear of like a custody issue or something. That maybe that's why she's like, oh, I want to like do this now while I can, because I've not been able to do it for several years. But yeah, I mean, I'm surprised because I
Right.
thought he was really out for her.
Yeah. I agree with you. And yeah, I don't have anything else to add to that. Talking about the Scheana and the Lala feud, let me read real quick what Scheana said about Lala.
Mhm.
So Scheana called out Lala for not promoting my good side promptly on social media after the book came out.
Mm,
And she said she sent Lala a PR box and later noticed Lala's post was minimal, just a side with a book, which hurt her feelings. And then she insists the rift isn't just about the Instagram post. She says there's so much more to it. And then she claims that Lala shared details about Brooke's affair with a mutual friend, Jenna Willis, who is Scheana not really friendly with,
mm,
before Scheana was ready to make it public about the affair. So Lala knew about the affair, and apparently Lala shared it with Jenna Willis, who Scheana wasn't friends with and who Scheana didn't like. So she didn't like that Lala told her
mhm,
and, abused her trust in that way.
mhm,
And she says she felt like it was a betrayal of trust and part of why she feels their friendship is fractured.
mm.
And then all of this seemed to have happened on the podcasts back and forth. I don't know if they were never talking to each other via text or call.
Yeah.
Instead, they just ended up responding to each other claims on their podcast, which is also kind of strange and, not resolving anything. So she also accused Lala of not taking accountability and implied that the issues go beyond just one conflict, suggesting there's been a pattern of behavior that has caused tension in the friend group.
Mhm,
And then what Lala said on her podcast, she said she did post about the book. She did pre-order promo and the post once it arrived, and believed that friendship shouldn't be judged on how quickly someone posts or supports something. And then on her podcast, she expressed exasperation, saying she sometimes feels like nothing she or anyone else does will ever be good enough for Scheana. And she said she wants Scheana to self-reflect more instead of keeping score and scrapping for reasons to escalate issues. She even joked she wants to shake Scheana over how much she digs into things. Despite all of this, Lala said she still loves Scheana, sees her as family, and cares about her and her family, but she's also disappointed in how things unfolded. And then most recently, Lala suggested she's done publicly, commenting on this feud she doesn't want to talk about anymore, indicating she may be ready to let go or at least stop fueling it publicly. And she has pointed out their daughters are still friends and that their relationship hasn't affected the kids, emphasizing that part of the bond remains through family. What's your read on all of this?
I think early on, my cynical read was that they were literally doing it to stay relevant, because, going back and forth was keeping people interested in them and their dynamic once the show wasn't on air anymore. right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And so, you know, that it was kind of mutually beneficial, really, to do that as they launched new podcasts and new books. And it's the same across the board. Like we see it with like people who've been doing this for a lot, even longer than them. Usually, if there's a drama, it's because something's coming out soon, right? And
Yeah.
we need eyes back on those people. So that was very much my cynical take. I don't think I've completely let that go, although I think at this point you'd think that they would have resolved it, really, and they would have moved on if it was all just a setup. I think I find her, and I, obviously listen to that too. The concept of it starting from her not posting about Lala not posting about Sheena's book is ridiculous to me. Like, I don't know why you would make that into a big deal if you're truly friends with somebody. Most of my very good friends have never read anything I've written, listened to any podcast I've ever been on, or even watched a show or a movie that or a documentary or something that I've been in. Like, it just isn't like, that's not your audience, right?
Right.
They know you, they've heard you talk about it, they've heard you hit all the anecdotes already, they know your take, they know your perspective. Do they really need to tune in and do that? Like, not
Yeah.
really. They were there for the whole thing.
Yeah. I
So
understand.
I find that very, like, weirdly suggested that perhaps Lala had more invested in that friendship than Scheana did, if she
Mhm.
that's an indication of any kind of level of, like, affection or loyalty or like, real friendship to me.
Yeah.
I just that's I mean, every all of Lala's audience is all of Sheena's audience. There wouldn't be any even marketing purpose in her, like, promoting that book heavily because all those people would already know the book was coming out. It's not a
Yeah.
fresh audience that Sheena's gonna reach through Lala's stories. It's the
Yeah.
same audience that she's gonna reach through her stories. So it's really petty, and says worse about her, I think, than anybody. And, if that was a problem and somebody I knew in my life made that a problem, I would be taking a step back for sure. That was the expectation, that's,
Yeah.
and I mean, I say that as somebody who, has lived in LA for a long time and, a lot of people put things out that, yeah, they don't get consumed by anybody but a close, small circle.
Yeah.
But I think, yeah, I just know from my experience, you can't think that that's like a basis of like, so that's not your audience anyway. Your
Yeah.
audience is not the people who are talking to you and know your whole life, who life you just put into book form. So I find that very odd, if that's true. I heard the other side of it was something to do with them having a fight over a play date and her going crazy in front of their children or something like that,
We're in
which
the
is
car. Yeah, they called each other, and apparently the kid was in the car, and they have different opinions on what was said. The one says you cursed in front of my kid, and the other one said I did absolutely not.
yeah, and also, like, we'd all be shocked if they didn't curse in front of their children, wouldn't we?
Right? Yeah.
Sorry, didn't
I mean, I
realise that was
curse in
the
front
line
of
at
Peanut.
the end.
Sorry,
Seems very strange to think that they're not
it
doing
happens.
it. They know what show they're on?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
I
obviously not
know.
to my view, it would be like, it's not about that. Like,
Yeah.
obviously, it's about that.
It's
And
about something. Yeah.
about some jealousy underneath it, like
Mhm. Maybe.
second baby when Scheana doesn't feel she can,
Yeah.
or Sheena's issues with Brock and Lala not having somebody to have issues with, which probably seems quite freeing, if you're in that state, right, and having to continue a relationship you're not massively happy with.
Yeah.
I'm sure there's a lot going on that we could speculate about if it's real, and it probably
Yeah.
is. But still, it is mind-boggling to think two people bought two houses so close to each other, and were like multiple times a week spending time together, and so close and so invested in that, and
Yeah.
then just like not be doing that.
But maybe that's also a point that Sheena was jealous of Lala, how Lala has it all, right? Like she lives without a guy at home. She lives with her happily family, doesn't have to go through the struggles of having a guy, a boyfriend or a husband. And then she gets this father energy for her child from Sheena's husband, who she lives with and struggles with at home, who cheated on her and has to go with all the negative aspects a relationship can bring. And Lala just seems to have it all without all. those negative aspects. Maybe there's a lot of jealousy in there. But also, as we said earlier, and I'm really a judgy bitch today. I'm sorry, Sheena, I actually love you. But as we said earlier, Sheena seems to be a little bit giving up the like social climbing energy. So maybe she expected for Lala to do the same that she would have done for her, go above and beyond in promoting this book for her friend. And Lala didn't. Lala did promote it in one single slide on her Instagram story, but maybe Sheena just expected more. And now that she seems to be in therapy, maybe her therapist gave her the wrong advice of putting her foot down and really setting your boundaries. And Sheena ran with it. Just my theory. Again, conspiracy theory, judgy bitch over here. But it kind of makes sense when I'm putting the puzzle pieces together in my mind. They just overly escalated for such a small situation. And now they lost this friendship. And hopefully it isn't lost forever. Or maybe it was never a true friendship to begin with if you throw it away that easily over such a small topic.
Yeah, I think somebody empowered Scheana definitely to like put her foot down in a way that was like, okay, now you're going to put your foot down. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? With this person over
Yeah.
this, and it doesn't really feel like it's like equivalent to the action, like you're saying. If you think of all the people over the years that she talks about in her book that she gave second, third, fourth chances to, and then all of a sudden she's like unforgiving, like one strike you're out
Yeah.
person. It feels like a change of mindset that's been, and probably very attractive if somebody says to you, well, no, you're right, and you should stand up for yourself. But unfortunately, if you're in a certain type of mindset, then you end up doing that and you're
Yeah.
isolated, right?
Yeah. Do you think it's salvageable? Do you think they will be able to save their friendship and never get back to where it was or have a different type of friendship, like a friendship at all?
Yeah, I think probably they will. I think it depends on where they are both in their lives. I don't see what Sheena's going to do next unless she becomes a housewife, which I don't really see happening. Maybe in 10 years' time. Um, Not right now.
Yeah.
And so she sort of, drifts down, and Lala's staying sort of there maybe with the show and things that she's doing. She might
Yeah.
sort of gravitate back towards Lala again. I
Yeah.
feel like coming off the show and doing the book and it being the bestseller and all this stuff, like she definitely seems like she thinks that she's got longevity, and I don't know how she's going to make that work, but maybe she will.
Yeah. Fingers crossed for them too. But also, I want to talk to you about the reboot of Vanderpump Rules. You seem to be the only person I could find in all the internet and all the comments I read of everybody. I see online posting so much about it. Nobody seems to like the new reboot, only you. So please tell me your honest take on it. Why do you like it? And do you think we all just gave up too early?
I think people didn't even give up. I feel like people just came in with such negative expectations and such bad intentions for this new show that like no, I don't feel like anybody had the kind of, felt like they were coming in to give it a chance. It was more coming in to bash it. Which is funny to me. I mean, I'm enjoying it. I mean, they've got a bunch of like, striving actors and actresses and people trying to make, it's a very similar vibe to the Vanderpump Rules was in the beginning, the previous setup for the show, except they seem to have made them all, not all of them, but some of them like 10 years older, which I think my theory with that is that they know everybody who watched the original series is now older and doesn't
Yeah.
particularly want to watch a bunch of like 22-year-olds, would rather watch a wider span of ages, which is what they've got. Got people in like mid 30s and stuff. And so I think it's, they've got a good set of characters. I don't find it overly contrived. I think it's obvious which ones are kind of, there's two people specifically, a woman and a man who've been brought in to kind of draw in, be attractive, be like the star, kind of that sort of thing. But the rest of them sort of fit and mix together quite well. And yeah, I mean, what I find what I find kind of more interesting is that the people who are on the previous show are like, I mean, I don't know whether that's for real or not, because right now, you know, they're saying that they're being really like, you know, this is the cheap version or the Temu version, which is odd because their lives in the first season of the previous series, you know, was nothing to.
Well, that has a reason that I can fill you in on. So apparently, one of the new cast members said, "Who is Katie Maloney?" And that is just very disrespectful of somebody who comes in this new reboot in season 12 and pretends not to know one of the main OGs that was on the same show from season 1 through 11. You know, that's just very disrespectful to say who's Katie Maloney. And that's why Katie Maloney and her podcast partner, co-host, what's her name? Danny? I forgot her name. I'm so bad with names. Excuse me for names. They said this is the Timo version of Vanderpump, and they all agree they shouldn't have just rebooted it. They should have probably done a new, maybe spin-off in Las Vegas or something in one of the other restaurants, you know. But that's why Katie Maloney was like, this is really disrespectful, and he is a clown for saying that, which I, for once, agree with Katie.
So, a lot to unpack there. I was in Palm Springs over Christmas, and Scheana and Brock and her Summer were leading the Christmas parade.
I remember you sent me the videos and pictures. So cute.
I promise you that most of the teenagers who were out for that Christmas parade and the young people had no idea who she was. They just had no idea who this person was.
Well, this also wasn't Vanderpump Rules targeted. It was just a Palm Springs thing.
Christmas parade, right?
Yeah.
So a bunch of random people.
Yeah.
And I just don't, I mean, of course it's provocative to say because you're in the show, right? And it's a reboot.
Yeah.
You think they would have been all fans of the show or at least watched it or anything. I mean, you know, it felt like everybody during the Scandal era was watching this show. Like there wasn't a single person who wasn't watching this show worldwide. It was such a big story, right? It
I
was
think
crazy.
it gained so many new viewers with this scandal who then went back and started from season 1 again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think if that hadn't happened, you could definitely believe in not having watched the show of your own accord unless the
Right.
producer told you to. But
Yeah.
because that happened, it seems unlikely that they weren't somewhat aware.
Yeah.
That said, my cynical side of like my behind the scenes reality TV side sees this very much as you're never going to get Katie and Lala and Scheana talking about that show in any kind of like enthusiastic,
But they
celebratory.
did, like, especially Lala at the beginning. She
Oh,
really
really?
wanted to give it a chance. On her podcast, she said she's excited for it. And I think she even had one of the new cast members on as a
Oh,
guest.
did
Like
she? Oh,
they
wow.
tried to,
Wow.
maybe they were contractually, you know, put to it or whatever, but told them you need to promote this or something, but they tried.
Tom Schwartz has posted about it and he's gone to the bar and done pictures and things. And it doesn't surprise me that she's done it. But like, yeah, I mean, lots of those people are not going to talk about it, I guess, even if those people are, which is because I imagine they're still on the payroll to the extent, right?
Yeah.
And Tom Schwartz, I think probably, I thought he would pop up in this season. He hasn't so far, actually. I thought he would. That I was going to say, there's part of me that was like, well, this is a good way of getting them to talk about the show
Mm-hmm.
when they wouldn't want to talk about the show, right? Because it doesn't matter that they're bashing the show. They're still talking about it, right? And it's still like, who's this guy? Who's this person in the cast? What does he do? Let me look at his Instagram. Oh, okay. Oh, you know, da, da, da. So it sort of is building interest regardless of the fact that she's saying this is a cheap, teamy version of what we were doing.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's that part of me that thinks maybe that's what's going on a little bit. But also I don't think it's a good look to be like, she shouldn't really, you know, why does she care at this point? You know, like they're also like, it's like a bunch of young people trying to do what they did and they made their whole careers out of it. Like, you know,
Yeah.
she made a
I
lot of
don't think
money,
she,
had huge
yeah.
success in the show, and she begrudges other people trying to do that. It's, you know.
No, I don't think that's the issue. I think it's just the disrespect that got her to say something. I don't think otherwise she would have commented on the show at all. I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't listen to her podcast. Maybe she has, maybe she hasn't. I'm not sure. I think what I can relate to, I believe I would feel if I was in her shoes, is the disrespect of you're continuing a show that I was on for 11 years as the main, like one of the main cast members, and you as pretending you don't know me. It's just a disrespect, which I understand and can relate to. What do you like about the new cast? Because I tried to go in, like you said, and try to give them a chance. And I watched, I think, the first 3 or 4 episodes. I honestly kept falling asleep, but maybe that was just my personal exhaustion, has nothing to do with the show. But I find those characters incredibly boring, and the drama they have, to me, almost seems scripted. And I went to Sir 2 years ago, and the guy with the long hair, and
Mhm.
I'm sorry, I'm horrible with names. He seemed such a boring waiter, and the whole vibe at Sir when I was there was just boring and nothing going on and was empty. So I tried really, really hard to be open-minded going into watching it, but then pretty quickly I felt like my worst fear of this being boring and coming across as scripted. And this one character, this girl, her name might be Natalie, maybe, the
Mhm.
way she talks seems so annoying to me. I just couldn't watch it. It just didn't grab me. And granted, that's oftentimes the case with the first season of a new show, right? It takes some time to warm up to the characters and get behind the stories and all that. But with that particular show, I just couldn't. Like, I kept falling asleep. It really annoyed me, and I would have to force myself to sit and watch it again, which a lot of commenters on Instagram and TikTok seem to feel the same way as me. So now I want to hear your side. Why do you like it? And maybe you can convince me to give it another shot.
Oh, I don't know about that. I mean, it would be interesting to map side by side, like what the actual story points and plot points were with the first season of the original show versus this one, because I don't know, like, I think we might be comparing it to Sandoval as opposed to the first season of Vanderpump Rules, the original show. I mean, yes, we had like, you know, someone sleeping with someone else's boyfriend behind that person's back, right? But there's certainly still time for that to happen on this show for sure.
Yeah.
Um, and I think, there's definitely that storyline developing between different people, developing new relationships at this point. You really only have one couple that's been in a relationship prior to the show. So that's a big difference. Whereas I think we had three couples with the original show, right? That came in as couples.
Yeah.
It's kind of an earlier point in terms of like relationship drama in that sense. Like you don't
Mhm.
have standing couples that are then going to like intermix and develop and break up and get back together. Oh no, I think you had four. I think everybody was in a couple pretty much apart from and so that's a different vibe and a different dynamic, right? You've got a lot more single people who are maybe going to date each other over the process of the show in the next few seasons, and then maybe date other people in the same group as opposed to established couples who've been together
Mhm.
a few years, maybe even before the show started. So I think it is coming in at a different point in terms of like how they all relate to each other and who they are to each other. But I think what always really appealed to me for me with the first season of the original show was like it's people in LA, trying to make it work as actors and trying to like just, striving to be in the industry or making movies or, going to castings or doing various things and living these kind of lives at that point. They're not successful, right? They're not like got mansions in Beverly Hills. It's not an aspirational show. It's the
Right.
opposite. It's kind of people who are generally maybe a little bit further down the rung of life's progress than you are watching, which is probably for the most of the audience watching something like this is true. So you're kind of not watching it as an aspirational, like, oh, I want to see all the beautiful restaurants they go to and the beautiful apartments they own and their great, fancy
Right.
Hollywood
Yeah.
the things their designer clothes. You're watching it for that reason. And it certainly is very much like that. But I think there's another part of it too that I'm sure people are reading into, which is that like LA has changed a lot since then. When Vanderpump Rules started, it was much more, I would say, like a cultural hub. Like, it was, like, where the trend started. Everybody knew what the restaurants were that everybody went to, the clubs they went to. There was a big celebrity culture. People were out more and
Mhm.
people were seen out more. And I would say, I mean, there's just been a conversation online about, like, the height of LA as a city, and I think it
Mhm.
was in the past, to be honest. And,
Yeah.
like, now things are very different. I mean, they talk about it on the show, restaurants are really struggling, West Hollywood in total is really struggling, like,
Yeah, that's true.
bars. Post-pandemic, a lot of people left during the pandemic, and a lot of people left during the strikes. There's a lot less industry work, so it's very different feel in a very different town. And so, yeah, the Sur is kind of empty, and Tom Tom is kind of empty, and it's surprising. And they are struggling. And Lisa Vanderpump talks about that, and you do get the sense that if this show doesn't work, they probably won't keep those restaurants open for much longer.
Yeah.
Vegas chains will continue, but this isn't gonna continue as, like, the Vanderpump block that they have had, you know,
Yeah.
already.
I also feel like the whole social media aspect has so much changed from back in the day. Like, I'm pretty sure when the first Vanderpump cast started filming for season one, they didn't expect at all to be making it as social media stars and eventually cashing in on it and having their own podcast and so on. So that's why I feel like the new cast goes in with a different mindset. They are hoping and expecting that they will make big money on social media and, getting brand deals and their own podcasts and other shows and all this. So the mindset is already completely different.
That's the same with all reality TV, and I've
Yes,
always made that complaint. First season of Big Brother in the UK, you'll never get that back again. Those
right.
people have
Same.
no
Yeah.
idea if 10 people would watch or 1,000,000 people would watch. No
Yeah.
idea.
Social
All of
media
the
ruined it a little bit for all the
other
reality TV shows. Yeah.
Love is Blind even, that started later on.
All of
Now
them.
the people have certain expectations. They make decisions within the show based on what they think the audience wants to see. They make
Yeah.
decisions based on social media, reactions. It's the same with all reality TV. It's very hard. It's not that it's about not being able to recreate the magic of Vanderpump Rules, I'm afraid. I think that's kind of bullshit, to be completely
Yeah.
honest. I think it's that it's all changed. The town has changed, but all of that has changed.
Yeah.
And yes, people are struggling to make money. To be honest, everybody is right now. And
Everybody
so
is.
they're on owning bands and they're doing other things, which is actually kind of interesting to make
Yeah.
money, as then the influencer economy is different for them now.
Yeah.
That's happening.
That
And
is
like I
true.
often go and look on the Instagrams and I'm like, oh, like how many followers does Venus have now? And they still only have like, maybe 10,000 followers. And
Because
I
nobody likes the show. That's
no,
why. That's why I'm also
exactly. And if you,
thinking, would
yeah.
they have set them up for more success if they just hadn't rebooted the original show? If they had just taken it to Las Vegas or something, would the show have been more successful than, continuing on the old show?
I'm pretty sure that was partly an economic choice because, like, I do think they're trying to keep the restaurant little complex they have there going. The most
Interesting.
popular business in that block that I think is continuing is Something About Her. Like, seems to just thrive endlessly when you think people would have lost interest at this point, but it's because
Yeah.
it's a really great concept and it's a really great, like, menu and it's a great idea. But otherwise it's struggling. And maybe they would have given them more of a chance. But yeah, I think when we're like, oh well, they obviously want to do, it's like, yeah, but of course they want to like make money. Who doesn't want to make money?
Right.
That's the thing, isn't it? And it's like that. And also the culture's very different. Like we've gone through, like Vanderpump Rules went through that whole idea of like people getting fired for things they said, people
Yeah.
getting fired for things they did, right? Like when that started, that wasn't happening. People weren't particularly like, go out for blood of people's careers and the way they make money because of their opinions or
It's very true.
and it developed. And now you're bringing people into a situation where it's not only about whether the show lives or dies, it's about whether their reputation can survive that. So if they put a foot out of line and
Yeah.
they are the wrong way controversial, that can have reverberations for a really long time. And so,
Yeah.
yeah, we did it to ourselves. If people don't, what I'm basically saying is if people don't like the news show, it's because it's their own fault.
I hear you loud and clear. And I also want to be a little bit mindful of our time here. And I
Yeah.
still do want to talk about Stassi real quick because
Oh, yes.
I'm a big Stassi fan, and sometimes I just don't like her so much because I find her a little bit arrogant at times. And
Right.
it seems like on her podcast, she sometimes puts other people down a little bit. And I'm not sure if that's, just my perception of it or if that's really the truth. But Stassi seems to be the blueprint right now. She's super hyper successful. She
Yeah.
has a contract with Hulu. She did the reunion of the Mormon the Mormon wives, which I think she is perfect for, just with her outspoken, bubbly personality. But unfortunately, I feel like she wasn't able to really shine because she seemed to be very restricted by Hulu and by what she had to read off the teleprompter. And also, for what I heard is they cut down the reunion so much and only showed tiny bits and pieces because they filmed the next season so quickly on that they
Mm.
rather want to show those conflicts on the next season than showing it in the reunion, which is also happening right now. So I heard they're already started filming the next season without the new season even being aired yet. So the same shit's happening over and over again, which is not Stassi's fault. I think she did a phenomenal job. And if they had showed her the full filming of the reunion, I think I would be giving her standing ovations right now. I think that's really her thing. Also, she just announced that she's changing her podcast, which I can super hyper relate to. Like you said earlier, I don't have a lot of friends either who listen to my podcast. It's not my main audience. The ones who listen to, I love you so much. Thank you so much. But Stassi mentioned in her podcast, she has the same thing. She mentioned that even her friends don't necessarily listen to her podcast. And she was tired of finding new guests for the show, which I can also relate to. It's a lot of work to getting the next episode lined up. And she doesn't want to rotate the same guests anymore like everybody else. So she decided to take her bestie on, Taylor Strecker, who I'm also like. She's very bubbly. She used to have a Sirius XM radio morning show. So now they both have a podcast together. Well, it's still Stassi's podcast. It's called Stassi with Tay, which they explained in their most recent episode that it's continuing to be Stassi and Tay just being a co-host on it. And now they were able to snatch a Netflix deal. So now her podcast is on Netflix. You can watch it on Netflix. You can also listen on all the normal platforms. And apparently the Hulu and the Netflix people came together to make it happen because Stassi's royalty stays with Hulu. So amazing things she's doing. She's a super, super role model, probably not only for me, for so many people out there who are trying to make it with podcasting, or even the old Vanderpump crew, or even the new one. Lala maybe launching her second podcast might have to do with Stassi because she also has the other podcast with her husband. So Stassi is doing a lot of things right, although sometimes I don't like her necessarily because she comes across arrogant. How do you feel about Stassi? What's your take? Do you like her? Do you applaud her like me? What's your feel on Stassi? What's your read?
I always just worry about Bo.
Aw,
Like,
how
I
so?
hope, I hope he's come to a place of peace with the fact that, she needs to ride the wave of the success, right? Like, she's obviously made certain decisions that have put her in the mainstream more, right? And I do think it's interesting to have like her do reunions and things, especially like the kind of blowback that Andy Cohen's been getting, over the last few years about like the way he relates to women and the questions he asks. And like, I think there's definitely some scope for that whole reunion and the interviews and things to change. And, good for her. But yeah, I always just, whenever I talk about Sassy, I always think about Bo, and I think he seems so like not comfortable in the position that he's in. Unfortunately, it's like she hasn't found him a role that makes sense for him in that world, you know? And
Yeah,
I don't he feels like an add-on, right? Rather than like he has as a central position, like as
yeah.
a part of her team. And I think she really needs to find something like that for him to stay happy, basically, in
And what
what
I
they're
like about her, how honest she is about this on her podcast. Like
doing.
she says honestly, he's the better parent. He's the number one parent. She's just the second role, which I love. But she also addressed that a
Unequivocally think
couple
her.
months ago that he must have said something to her that he isn't happy, and he was considering going back to whatever. I think, was he a director or something in the entertainment industry? I forgot. Thing director or something, that he was considering going back to doing that to
Mhm.
find his own fulfillment. But she was honest about it on her podcast, and she said she would support him in whatever he chooses, right? So yeah, I appreciate you bringing that up. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
she totally could. And I mean, she, I think obviously he is incredibly important because he probably is doing the bulk of childcare and house upkeep and
He's your
managing it,
backbone. Yeah.
running their lives. But for a lot of men, it's not enough, is it?
Yeah.
Unfortunately, it should be, but it's not.
Yeah.
So yeah, I do think about that sometimes.
Yeah,
But no,
I
she's
love that.
just made. I want. I'm you with the way she's gone with it. You wonder whether it's been accidental or strategic, because she's either got a very good team who's made a lot of really good choices, or she's just been presented with some lucky opportunities in the last few years that she's said yes to. It's like, she's obviously kept friendly with Lisa Vanderpump, right? Like
Yeah.
she's obviously managed to maintain a lot of relationships and I don't feel like I hear her going on the podcast bitching about people from Vanderpump Rules.
Which I don't think is a smart thing to do. I mean, for us, yes, but I'm the judgy bitch and you're my judgy bitch sidekick right now. But if you're in the industry working with those
Right.
people, I don't think you should publicly shit on them. That's not a smart move, in my opinion.
Moved on a lot, right? And she
Yeah.
just is in a completely different place. And that's obviously served her really well to
She
not.
understands the network, I think, right?
I think so. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, she was always different, wasn't she? I mean, she
Yeah.
always had different interests, and aesthetically, she's very different in
And
her
she was
taste.
always very ambitious from day one. She launched her podcast very early on in the Vanderpump seasons.
Hmm. Yeah, she's always had a different kind of outlook on everything, I think, and she is
Yeah.
kind of interesting personality.
And if you remember from the first Vanderpump Rules season, she was always this go-getter. Remember when she started this events kind of business and she
Yeah,
asked Lisa if she could throw events? Like she was always the go-getter. She was always hustling and coming up with ideas and using her network, in this case, Lisa Vanderpump, asking her to give her opportunities, which she uses as a stepping stone. Like she's smart like
yeah,
that.
it's true. And I think, yeah, and she's always not assumed that things would work out, is the feeling I get. Like, and they might not have done, she got sunk for a bit there and then she had to
Yeah.
like sit back and go, okay, what do people actually want from me? Like, what can I do here that would make
Yeah.
sense?
But she
And
is
I mean,
good at reflecting this way. Even her one book where she reflected on all the things that happened was a super successful book, and I enjoyed reading it very much. She is good at reflecting and reinventing herself.
yeah, maybe she just got really good advisors. But you'd think if she'd got really good advisors, everybody would go after those people. So I don't know how much it's that and how much is just her choices that are kind of from a place that's more real or has more integrity than maybe.
Yeah, I agree
Like,
with you.
does she have a lot of like family money? Like, does she come from money, Stassi?
I don't think so, because she comes from a very separated family, right? I think
Oh,
her dad was married multiple times. They're separated. Her mom seems to be remarried. I don't think they're necessarily super poor, but I don't think she came from money.
interesting. I always wondered that because sometimes that can definitely help people make decisions that are kind of more calm and less frantic and
Yeah.
panicked.
I don't know for sure, but I believe she is self-made. That's
Mm.
my impression.
Oh, interesting. Well, yeah. Yeah, she's doing well.
Yeah,
She
she
might
is.
take over from Andy Cohen and do all the reunions for whole of Bravo. We'll see.
Yeah, he definitely should buckle up on his seat because she's coming for it.
Yeah, and I can see people being open to that at this point.
Yeah. That reminds me, I discussed it when I had Romy on and we were talking about
Yeah.
Love Island. But remember when Andy and Ariana did the Love Island reunion? That just didn't match well, in my opinion. They didn't have a
No,
good vibe together.
no, I don't think he is a partner person. I mean, obviously with Anderson Cooper on New Year's Eve, he does well, but they're
Yeah.
friends off camera, aren't they? So it's a
Yeah.
little, but that's like a boss employee relationship still, to
Yeah.
an
Yeah,
extent.
definitely.
But yeah, I'm watching Love Island UK right now, so I'm very into my Love Island All Stars.
Love it. I used to watch UK and Australia as well. I dropped off. I need to go back into it. But honey,
Yeah.
I want to be mindful of our time. We are over an hour already. I
Okay.
I know I could talk to you for days about all this. I enjoy your take so much. And sorry if I was a little judgy bitchy in this episode. But before I let you go, I want to play some quick games with you real quick. Do you still have a minute?
Yeah.
Okay. So the first game, super quick, is This or That, Bravo edition, of course. And the first one is OG Vanderpump Rules or The Valley.
OG Vanderpump Rules.
Scheana's memoir tea or Lala's podcast confessionals.
Lala's podcast. Much more new information in that one.
And Lala is so good with her words. Like she can
Very thoughtful.
and bring it across better and it hits harder.
Mhm.
Messy authenticity or Polish self-awareness?
Self-awareness.
Okay. There's no wrong answers. This is just, whatever you pick.
No,
Public-
right?
Yeah.
I just make a decision.
Public healing or private therapy?
Private therapy, I think. Well, I think it always happens, doesn't it, in the end, even if you go through the public healing first.
Yes, definitely. Stassi hosting reunions or Stassi never returning to Bravo?
Oh, I think she should do the reunions. I think it's time
Yeah,
for somebody else to do at least some of them, for sure.
some of them. I agree. I still love Andy. He is the absolute godness
Yeah, and
in
he
that.
knows so much. He has all that history in his head. You would need somebody who remembers all the relationships and the characters and the people and their relationship to each other, right?
Yeah,
It's like,
I agree.
yeah.
Last question for this game is reboot the show or let VPR die with dignity?
I think it probably will die. I don't know if it will be with dignity. I would think they'd give it another season, but I just don't know if the restaurants will keep going. And if you've got no restaurants for them to work in, as we discovered with the first one, I'm not sure what to do with them.
I wonder if TomTom is doing better than Sir, because whenever I drive by TomTom here in West Hollywood, it seems to be crowded, at least in the
Oh.
evening hours.
That's good. I think maybe it functions well as a bar, but yeah, maybe not so much as a restaurant. But yeah.
And also has the better location. Like TomTom is right on Santa Monica Boulevard where all those fun bars are next to each other. And
Yeah.
Sir is a little bit down the, one of the side streets.
Yeah, so it was funny quickly when went to Tom Tom, it was really funny because the guy serving us said, "Oh, they're filming the reunion for the new VPR down at Sir right now." So we went down there, and 3 times we got the wrong street. I was like, "Why can't I remember where this place is?"
That's funny.
So you're absolutely right. It's a terrible location.
Okay, next quick game is called One Word Only. So just give one word answers. First one is Scheana in 2025.
Rich.
Okay. Lala right now.
Honest.
Okay. New VPR cast.
Young.
Stassi today.
Successful.
Bravo's future.
No, my first word that comes to mind is over, but we'll see. I wonder how long we've got with the reality TV era, but we'll see.
That's a very good thought. I wonder that sometimes too. Okay, really last game. I know we're way over time, but last one. Quick one. Keep it or cut it, right? So Scheana on Bravo, keep it or cut it.
Cut it.
Lala podcasting about her ex, keep it or cut it.
Cut it.
VPR reboot, keep it or cut it.
Keep it for now.
You're the only person who would say that. I swear.
I know. Take us watching it. But I get used to that. There's other shows that I'm that too.
That's fine. Last one, Stassi hosting more TV. Keep it or cut it?
Keep it.
I'm right there with you, at least right now. I go through waves of liking her and not liking her, but right now I'm liking her.
Let's see if she steps out of line again.
Holly, I want to thank you so much for coming on. You have great tea, great takes, great read on things. You bring always ideas I haven't thought about it before. That's why I enjoy having you so much on here. I can't wait for us to catch up in real life. I know we have a little date next week to go eat sushi. I can wait. And Bitch Besties, let us know your hot takes, your opinions, comment, let us know what you think. If you have any tea that we haven't spoken about, bring it to us. And I want to thank you so much for listening, for following. Please review, subscribe, like, whatever. Holly, thank you so much for coming on. And Bitch Besties, I see you next week. Thank you. Bye.
Thank you.
That was it for today. Thank you so much for listening. And if you are as excited and opinionated as Peanut and me, please give us a follow on Instagram at the Judgy Bitch Pod. And don't forget, please also tell everybody you know about this new podcast so they come and follow us as well. We would much appreciate it. Would you like to be part of it? Sure, go ahead. Send us a DM with your feedback, your hot takes, and your unapologetic opinions. We might read them next time. And last but not least, don't forget, please follow, review, and rate wherever you listen to this podcast. See you next week. Cheers, bitches.